Hey everybody, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of my Crazy Little Thing Called Thought podcast. I'm Luke Richardson. This is episode 14 of the podcast, and I've done many episodes now about stress, depression, anxiety, and how that relates to the workplace and how our true self, how tapping into our infinite potential, our blank canvas for creativity and our essence of life can help us get through that and overcome it. Now, I think I need to give you guys a little bit of why, like who I am, why I'm doing this, and why it's important that I teach this so anybody else who's going through any similar situations at work with stress and anxiety and depression can see right past it and either stay in that job and thrive if they want to do that, or if they want to see a clearer picture and think, you know what, this job isn't for me, it's not doing me any particular favours, I'm going to move on, which is what I did eventually. And it's not just workplace people, a lot of people who aren't workplace professionals, retired people, youngsters, everyone can benefit from this understanding, because this understanding lives within us all. It's not just certain individuals. That's the beauty about seeing life via a deeper truth. It's not just for certain people, it's for everybody. Everybody can benefit from this understanding. Now, let's start off from let's start off from the start of my working career. So I went to university in the UK. I did a course I did a BTEC. Well, first of all, I went to college after school, high school. Do you want to call it? I then went on to do college to do a BTEC National in Internet and Business Technologies. I then sort of went into university and did a honours degree in, again, I think it was IT and business, computers, something like that. I can't remember. It's that long ago now. I'm 37 in a couple of weeks, so my university days just feel like such a long time ago, even though I only graduated back in 2010. I then did an honours degree at Sheffield Hallam University, and I had a job alongside university at Morrison's. If you don't know what Morrison's is, for any overseas listeners, Morrison's is one of the top 5 supermarket chains in the United Kingdom. So I worked there while I was at university, and you know what? After all the jobs I've had from the age of 17 to nearly 37, Morrison's, I always think this, I thought this recently actually, I thought this very recently, Morrison's was my favourite job, is my favourite job I've ever done. And yet it was the most repetitive, the least paid. I think back then I was on no more than £6 an hour, which, you know, in today's standards would be absolute derisory pay, considering how much inflation has gone up, etc. I was on £6 an hour tops. I think it was £2.50 on a Sunday actually, so that would have made it £9 an hour. But still, it wasn't particularly great pay. But I enjoyed the job. I enjoyed meeting people. I enjoyed packing people's bags. I worked on the checkout. I wasn't stacking shelves. I was on the front line on the checkout. I enjoyed packing people's bags. I enjoyed talking to people. I enjoyed the people I worked with. I just loved working at Morrison's, and looking back, I wish I'd have stayed there a lot longer, because what happened then was I finished that degree in the summer of 2010, and in about the Christmas of 2010 going into Jan 2011, I got my first full-time job at a company, and it was to do internet technical support at a call centre. And I did that for about 18 months or so, and again, looking back, I quite enjoyed that job. Again, it was the most repetitive, the least paid. I enjoyed the people I worked with again. I then went on to get some independence in that job. I ended up moving out my mum and dad's house, living in a shared house in Sheffield with 3 other people, having to do my own cooking, my own laundry, make my own bed in the morning. It was a real learning curve for me, because I went to university, but I stayed at home with my mum and dad. My sister had gone to my sister had joined the Royal Navy, so I was with my mum and dad for many years on my own, and so, my mum still mothered me. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really do much when I lived with mum and dad, so moving out at 22, finally, getting on my own 2 feet was a massive learning curve for me, and, I think that put me in good stead because in the first quarter of 2012, I ended up meeting my wife, and I think my independence that I'd built up over the last 12 months or so, moving out, put me in a better frame to court her. Basically, I wasn't someone dossing around at home at mum and dad's house. Not that there's anything wrong with that, by the way. If it's working for you, that's fine. There's no judgment there. But obviously, for me, I need a little bit of discomfort to grow, and moving out was that for me. I grew as a person. I was independent. I stood on my own 2 feet. I had to force myself to look after my own money because I had bills to pay, that kind of thing. And at Morrison's, at my first job at the call centre, at uni, and meeting my wife, blah 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 blah, life was good, and mentally I was thriving, and and yet I was on the least pay I'd been on in my life, and yet I was probably the most happiest I've been in my life. I'll be honest. Okay, then I started in the company I was in, doing the call centre job. It was a fun company to work for, but you could sense it was starting to move with the the corporate world. You could tell I just joined a company that wasn't that old, but that company wanted to move forward. It wanted to make more money. It wanted to get more clients. It wanted to have a more professional. It wanted a more professional feel. It wanted more professional branding. It wanted more professional people, and it was showing already when I first joined that it wanted to move on from that fun company people like to work at to something a bit more polished up. So that rubbed off on me a little bit, and I looked at the company and thought, you know what, I could make something of myself here. I could, work really hard. I could, go for promotions. I could really, really make a good life for myself here. And I did. Before I go into it, I did. I managed to buy houses without. I'll explain to you what happened, but I managed to buy a couple of houses with the salaries I was on in these jobs at this company. Me and my wife were able to get married. We were able to, do things with the house with the money we were on. We were able to have a good social life. Go out for meals. Blah 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 blah. Again, what was not to like about all that? And I eventually ended up getting in the call centre job. I was doing shift work. I was doing, I think I was doing 2 shifts. It was either 8 while 4 in the daytime, and then 2 while 10, so afternoon 2. So it was two shifts. And again, despite doing shift work, I was not unhappy, but I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do forever. So I wanted to get something more stable. So I ended up getting a job within that company that was 9 while 5, and it was helping somebody do. It was basically helping somebody put internet lease lines. If you don't know what a lease line is, it's basically a fibre optic line that goes into residential homes. They do have fibre lines, yes, but I'm talking about really high speed fibre lines. So your 100 megs, your 1 gigs, 10 gig lines, and so on. In houses, they're still fast, obviously, for fast broadband, but they're a lot slower than what I was delivering for this company. So I was delivering very high speed internet lease lines into buildings, student accommodations. So those student accommodations and the students in there could have very high internet services that were very reliable. I was helping somebody do that with UK providers like BT and Virgin. Anyway, enough of that. I don't want to go on because it is boring. This is a podcast about my story and why I'm doing the mental health talks that I'm doing. So I get this job, and I'm doing 9 while 5 work, and I do that for about 12 months, and then the guy I'm working with moves on to do something else. So I'm doing that job, and I'm and then I do that job on my own for another, say, 3 to 4 years, and I'm either or. Really, I'm not particularly enjoying it, but I'm not disliking it either. So I stay doing it as long as I do for 3 to 4 years. So this takes me into 2016-17, and I'm starting to get, the company's starting to thrive a lot more, and I'm having an eye on project management work. So the company's moved on, as I say. They've started to employ a lot more people, and they've got a project management department, and they employ people a lot older and more experienced than me to do project management. And I'll say naive, because I get to the point later of our naivety in me looked at that and thought, these people look like they're really, really going far in their working careers. Project management looks a lot of fun, and that's something I'd like to do. And spoiler alert, I went for a project management position and got it. It was a project support position at first, which I did for 12 months or so 2016-17 to 2018. Did a project support role, and then by 2018 I was a full project manager, and I did project management at that company for, I'd say, another 6 years before I left, and I ended up getting a project management degree or qualification in the process, a UK-based project management qualification in the process. Now, I ended up leaving the company in last year in summer of 2024. Why? Because I was so fucking stressed. I was ever so stressed over those 6 years. Now, what I know now about how the mind works is it wasn't the company I was working for that was the problem. It never was from the minute I set foot in 2011 doing the call centre job. Because we live in a world of thinking, a world of thought that flows through us. It doesn't come to us. So, despite me being stressed in this project management position, and what I've been through, like people calling me, saying, when's this going to be ready, when's that going to be ready, or we use pressure deadlines. A lot of our work we had deadlines for September. I was getting new products in July, saying, can you do this for September? And really pushing back on that, but nobody seemed to particularly listening, or I felt they weren't particularly listening anyway. And I was very unhappy for those between 2018 to 2024. I think I've been the most depressed and miserable I've ever been in my life. I didn't show it particularly much on the outside much. I had my moments, and I'll get into that shortly, where I showed a lot of vulnerability to my family, to my work colleagues, to my boss's boss. I showed a lot of vulnerability there, and I couldn't have asked for any more supportive, friends, family, colleagues at work. They really rallied around me and helped me. But the kick in the teeth for me was it wasn't the job that was causing this. It was my own thinking, my own thought psyche that was doing it to myself. If only I could just see beyond the thinking, I might still be in that job now. And everything happens for a reason. I am glad I'm out of the job now, and glad I'm got another job, and I'm moving forward and starting to do this to teach you guys about how the mind works for you, whether you're in the workplace or not. But if I had a deeper understanding of even just a little bit of how life really works, I might still be there now and not doing this audio recording to you. So there you go. And yeah, so I was doing project management for 6 years, very stressed, very pulling my hair out every angle. Maybe you can relate. Maybe it's not just project management. There may be other industries that are very similar, that are very high pressured, highly stressful. You feel like you got the world on your shoulders. And not only was I doing project management between 2018 to 2024, I won't go into the COVID pandemic too much, because the irony is that well, first of all, the COVID pandemic affected everybody, not just me, so I won't make that a unique thing for me, but the irony is, for me personally, the COVID pandemic eased things a lot for me, because back in 2020, I was very stressed from the job, and COVID, ironically for me, calmed things down. Everything locked down, life slowed down. I was not furloughed, I was still working, but work was incredibly quiet, and I'll be honest, I was thinking, thank God for that, because I felt like I needed that little bit of break in life. I wouldn't have asked for a COVID pandemic to give me that break, but it did. It was a horrible thing, as we all know, still is today. But because the world stopped, corporate working kind of slowed down, without stopping, but slowed down, it helped me a lot. Or because I'm trying to teach the inside out understanding, I thought it helped me a lot. So yeah, not to mention 6 years of project management. I also ended up having my first daughter in 2018, and I had a second daughter in 2020, hence why I was very grateful for COVID in 2020 for me, slowing things down, because I already had a child on top of a stressful project management job, and I also had another child on the way in 2020, so COVID massively got my head together a little bit more and slowed things down in my career, and bringing up a 1-year-old going on 2, and also trying to support a pregnant wife with another daughter coming in October 2020. I should be 5, incredibly, in a couple of weeks, as I'm doing this podcast in October 2025. So yeah, so as I said, I did Morrison's when I was a teenager, and then I did my first job in 2011, my first full-time job in 2011 to 2012, and I got a little job to kind of get me into the corporate world, and then I got into project management. I would say between 2018 and 2024, I was on the most money, I had the most responsibility. I felt I was really something in the working world, really providing for my family, big salary, buying houses, selling houses. I thought I'd peaked, and I thought I'd made it, and I honestly thought I'd be doing this until I was going to retire. And obviously I'm not. I'm in another job and starting to do recordings and audios for people to help with their mental health, which I'm really enjoying, by the way. But I thought I'd made it, and I thought I was doing it forever, because I thought I was all set for the rest of my life. And between 2018 and 2024, I think I was the most miserable and depressed I've been, deep down. And the irony is, when I was on less stressful roles and more, not say funner roles, but roles with less responsibility and less pay, I was probably more happier. So it just shows you, doesn't it? It's not particularly the jobs that do this to us. It's our thinking, because a lot of people could work at a supermarket in Morrison's and absolutely hate it. I saw it. I saw people hate being on the checkout. I saw people find any excuse to get off a checkout and help stack shelves, or do the self-service ones instead. Anything to get away from the repetition of, putting food through a conveyor belt, scanning it, taking people's payments, saying hello and saying goodbye. I loved it. I loved it. Maybe I would have had a different take on it if I did it full time, week in, week out, year on year. But at uni, I blooming loved it. It was a great job. So it just proves that our thinking doesn't dictate our experience. Well, I'll rephrase that. It just shows that our thinking does dictate our experience, but the outside world doesn't. That's what I'm looking for. Sorry, by the way, about that. I'm recording this at 6:10 in the morning UK time, and maybe that's not such a good idea when I'm still feeling tired and groggy, but I've got 2 kids sleeping upstairs, so this is probably the best time to record podcasts for you, because you probably never hear any recordings from me if the kids were up and awake and making their usual racket. So first thing in the morning and last thing at night, it has to be done to record these recordings for you, because as I say, I'd never do them otherwise. So okay, so I've given you my adult life there, a lot of my adult working life, my adult career, and the highs and lows of that, and a little bit of my personal life as well, of where I am now. I thought that working really hard in a corporate job was what got me somewhere, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, that's not true. I'm in a much better place for me mentally now. I'm out of a stressful job than I was before. And why is this all important? Like, you might be listening to the podcast with enjoying the story I'm giving out, but probably thinking at the minute, okay, Luke, so what's your point? So let me get into that, because there is something right under our noses that we miss moment to moment, day to day, week on week, month on month, year on year. We miss it because it's right under our noses. It's more invisible than we can ever appreciate. We 100% through thought and through thinking see our reality. Now, when you understand deeply that thinking you have on a daily basis, when you see that it has no rules and it's very fluid and you could think anything, and what I thought and what you thought 10 seconds ago isn't true right in this moment now, I mean 10 seconds ago is gone, right? So what we are thinking right now is gone. And now it's just a memory through time, through thinking. It's an illusion. And what's going to happen 10 seconds from now is also an illusion. It's very eye-opening for people to understand and see that we live in a world of thought, and our thoughts are not us. It's not the truth. We just think it's us because we latch onto it, we identify with it. And you see this all the time because you have thinking going on in your mind, but you don't always do anything with it. You could be at work and some colleague is winding you up. You just feel like, shouting at them and telling them to go away, or, feeling like you could just really, really, really slap them around the face. You won't do that, obviously, but you just want what you feel you could do because they're being so annoying. Now, a lot of people just see that as, it's just my thinking, I'll move on, and then they don't feel as annoyed about the person later on. Whereas some people would believe that thought and really would yell at that person and really would try and maybe get physically aggressive with them because they're pissing them off so much. Now that's the freedom of choice, isn't it? Because if we're having thinking of somebody being annoying, but we just let it slide, we've chose just to see that as thinking and thought and not done anything with it. Whereas people who don't understand the role thought plays in life believe that thought and think, right, I need to do something about this person because they're really annoying me. It's the same with me and my stressful workload. All it was just a lot of insecure thinking I had going on at work. It wasn't the amount of work I had. It wasn't the people I was working with. It wasn't the tight deadlines. I was doing it to myself. Only I was doing it to myself. I was the one putting pressure on myself through my own thinking. Because you got to look at it this way. I could easily have thought about the job differently. I could have took an easier, relaxed approach on it. I could have not worried about it so much. Asking the question, was it possible for me during those 6 years of doing project management to not take it so seriously? The answer is yes, isn't it? And now I understand that I could have had any thinking in that job, any thinking at all. Not just stressful thinking that I was making up and marrying all day, every day. I could have had any thinking in that job. And knowing that there was thousands of different thinking and thoughts I could have had in that job, just shows to me that it wasn't particularly real. Because it was true. I was stressed, yes, but I also had my lucid moments. I'd have moments where I'd thought, this job's not so bad, really. And yet, I was so stressed with it. So it shows the fluidity of how we think in life, and it's nothing to do with the outside world. It's just the roller coaster of our thinking. But we put it, because we don't understand now. We have to give it some meaning in the outside world for it to make sense to us, and we're like, oh yeah, that makes sense because of this, because my boss has been a jerk, that deadline was really giving me a lot of pressure, that work colleague was really annoying me. We give it meaning in the outside world to make it make sense to us, but reality is you don't have to do that. We don't have to pin it on the outside world, because the only game that's going on here is an internal one within us. Now, if you are I hope this really helps. I hope my story and my talking about how life really works really, really helps you. As I say, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a workplace professional, whether you're in a supermarket or a corporate job or a construction site, blah, 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 wherever you work, hairdressers, for instance. You don't have to be in a job for you to benefit from this. People unemployed can benefit from this understanding. Older generations can benefit, retired people. It's never too late to catch on to this understanding and thrive from it. Because at a deeper level, we are all the same. We all think. We all have an infinite potential. While we're born until the day we die, we all have an infinite potential to think the way we want to think. And that's really powerful to know, and it can help you. And it can help you in the job you're in. It can help you, move on from that job if that's the right thing to do. Only you know that. I'm not here to give these recordings to tell you what you should be doing, tell you should be leaving a job. I know I gave my story of how it happened, but that was me. I'm sorry, I know myself. I don't know your own situation, but I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you how to think, whether to stay in a job, whether to leave a job, whether to be unemployed. I'm not here to tell you all that. What I'm here to tell you is how your mind works and how you can tap into that to get the best results for you. Now, I hope you enjoyed this one. I thought this story would help any regular listeners to really understand, my own journey from in the working world to now, and hopefully you might be able to resonate with that and, get a lot more from these podcasts of, realising for yourself that a deeper understanding of how your mind really works can get you through life much more gracefully and easily. Bye bye. I'll see you on the next one.